Slender Man, Jeff the Killer, the Backrooms, the SCP Foundation. You've heard these names. Even if you don't remember the details, the energy is still there. These stories have escaped the internet and turned into something else. Modern legends, digital folklore, things you just know about even if you've never actually read the original post. They get talked about like myths, like warnings, like something that happened to a friend of a friend of a friend. But if you really break it down, it's a Reddit story, a YouTube narration, a webpage.
This is a text on screen that scared you. And when you say it like that, it's kind of silly. And yet, it worked. So let's slow this down and ask the obvious question. What is a creepypasta? We know them as scary stories online, but have they always been like this? At first, they were known as copypastas. At its most basic level, it's a short horror story designed to be copied, shared, and consumed quickly. That's where the name comes from. Copy, paste. Copypasta. All that is a block of text that was widely shared on forums and social media. Something along the lines of this. Starting around 2007 on 4chan, because of course 4chan would be responsible, copypastas would start a movement that would shape the internet and popular media as we know it. Copypastas became creepypastas because of the said creep factor, and they've been on a fast track to popularity ever since. But that definition doesn't really explain why they work.
My first experience with a creepypasta wasn't some beautifully written piece of horror. It was something I probably shouldn't have been reading at the age I was reading it. It was late at night, on a forum, with bad formatting and worse grammar. And that mattered, because creepypastas don't feel like books. They don't feel like movies. They don't even really feel like short stories. They feel like something you stumbled across. They feel unofficial, unpolished, a little dangerous. A creepypasta doesn't ask for your time. It sneaks into it. Somewhere along the way, creepypastas stopped being short, scary stories online and started being treated like a shared cultural memory. People argue about canon, they debate timelines, they add lore, they correct each other, and yet none of it is real. Sure, some of them may be based on true events, but at the end of the day, none of this actually exists. But that's kind of the point. Creepypastas work on a different level, and to help explain a bit better, let me bring in a special guest.
Kayfabe, the professional wrestling concept where everyone involved knows it's fake, but agrees to treat it as real anyway. You know Slender Man isn't real. You know the backrooms aren't real. But you also have a pretty good idea how you'd feel if you did end up there. The fear doesn't come from believing it's true. It comes from participating in the pretending. This is your fear, filtered through the internet, curated, edited, shared. And that shared agreement, that quiet, yes, I'll play along, we'll all play along, are where creepypastas truly live, even if you're not the one commenting on the post.
A lot of creepypastas that could sit with a little bit more fine-tuning generally fall into the same pitfalls. They rely on gore instead of atmosphere, they mistake shock for fear, and they desperately want to be taken seriously. Here's the important part. There is no correct way to write a creepypasta. This is just my opinion. There is no rulebook. There is absolutely no right answer to any of this. But the stories that stick with the audience tend to understand something very specific about how people read online and how people scare themselves. What makes these stories so great is their accessibility. They are on just about every platform out there. They are in every media form, whether it's audio, visual, writing, there are even movies at this point. And the best part is, everyone can make one. And with that, everyone can have their creepypastas published as well. There are no editors, there's no agents, no publishing houses, nothing like that. All it takes is an account and for you to click post. And because of that, you can continue your creepypasta journey every single minute of your life, listening to a new story every second, and yet you won't even begin to scratch the surface of what's available for you. It's because of this that for every great story, there's quite a few not so great stories. But with that said, even a bad story has its place in the community because that is the creator contributing to this. This creator decided to go out on a limb and post their story, their creation, and they wanted to do what was right and share their story with the world. This is them doing what they feel is right. And at the end of the day, all art is worth something. Unless it's AI. Then it's worthless. Womp womp.
The purpose of a creepypasta isn't just to scare you. It's to make you complicit. Unlike traditional horror, creepypastas often pretend they aren't fiction at all. Or at least it doesn't announce itself as fiction. There's no cover page, no author bio, no clear boundary between story and reality. If anything, most of the stories serve as warnings. It exists in the same space as any other community or platform. If it's online, it must be true. The ambiguity is doing a lot of the work. You're not settling in for a story. You're scrolling, you're reading comments, you're already half distracted, and that makes you vulnerable.
Now this video is titled, What Makes a Creepypasta? So let's get to it. Let's start with the big picture. Over time, creepypastas have fractured into recognizable genres. Where I often start is asking the question, what type of story do I want to make? Are there going to be ghosts? Is it psychological? Is magic or otherworldly forces involved? Once you have a generic idea of the type of story that you want to create, you can kind of follow a snowball effect. There are killer stories, often very gore-heavy and very direct. These were everywhere early on, and they tend not to age well. Shock does wear off fast. But with that said, they do serve a purpose and they do have a place here. There are mystery-focused stories where the fear comes from not understanding what's happening, and the purpose of the story is following the character and what their experience is with the mystery. Stories about generational trauma, family secrets, inherited curses, things that are hidden for a reason. Next, there are secret society stories, forbidden knowledge, organizations that know more than they should and tell you less than you want. And then there's something like the backrooms.
One image, a few paragraphs, and suddenly an entire genre exists. The backrooms work because they're instantly understandable. You don't need lore, you don't need a wiki. You've been in a place like this before. Empty, fluorescent, familiar in the worst way. Accessibility is everything. If something feels like homework, people won't be scared. They'll just close the tab.
So you know what type of genre you're going for. Great, but what comes next? A good creepypasta asks the reader a few questions. What's happening? Why is it happening? Who is being targeted? And who or what is doing the targeting? But here's the trick. They don't always answer them. Sometimes the lack of answers is the point. When a story leaves gaps, the reader fills them in. They rationalize, they theorize. They replay it in their head over and over again, trying to make sense of it. And in doing so, they participate. Not everything needs an explanation. In fact, sometimes an explanation can kind of ruin the moment, make the story not scary anymore. The moment you can start understanding something is the moment you can start controlling it. This is one of the genres where it's too easy to write too much and too little. If you give your audience too much information, well, then it stops being scary. And if you give your audience too little information, well, then what exactly am I reading? I don't know what I'm scared of, I don't know what I'm following. There's text, but why should I be reading this if I don't know what's going on?
One of the most effective things a creepypasta can do is force the reader to rationalize something irrational. You start asking yourself questions the story will never answer. Why would that happen? What would I do in that situation? Could that actually happen to me? And now the horror isn't just on the page. It's in your head, living rent-free. What was that redacted item the storyteller was hiding? Why does it feel like you can be a character in the story? What hidden info did the character find out that, if you find out what it is, might make you susceptible to the horror? We've all been in a situation that's been the premise of a creepypasta. You've cleaned out your attic. You thought you saw something that, upon closer inspection, wasn't there. You've lost someone that you wish was here. By making the setting familiar, it allows the reader to expand upon the story with their own inferences. The tale is vague on descriptions for a reason. The more you add to the story, the more involved the reader becomes.
Strangely enough, creepypastas have a lot in common with higher level academic reading. Dense text, fragmented information, meaning found in what isn't said. Remember in English class when the teacher kept asking the meaning for things like, what does the yellow sweater represent? Or what does the blue flower represent? How should I know? It's not in the text. Well, sometimes, as I said before, that can be the point. Our imagination is what makes the fear, not always what's on the page. Take SCP for example. There are entire books worth of lore, detailed reports, clinical language, endless documentation, but what people remember most are the redactions, the blacked out lines, the missing data, the implication that something is being hidden from you specifically. This filler exists to make the silence louder. So if we're to break it down very loosely, creepypastas tend to share a few common elements.
There's a location. There's a threat. There's something fictional that disrupts the ordinary. And there's a victim, even if that victim is only implied. Often they frame themselves like modern urban legends, not required, but common. Point of view matters too. First person feels intimate. Second person feels invasive. Third person feels like a story being passed on. And once you're done reading it, you reread it. Let me give you a short example. I didn't notice the extra door in my apartment at first. It was painted the same color as the walls, tucked between the bathroom and the bedroom. No handle, no hinges, just a door. I assumed I missed it during the tour. The second night, I heard something on the other side. Not knocking, more like movement. Slow, careful. I texted my landlord. She replied almost immediately. That door isn't part of your unit. When I asked her what was behind it, she stopped responding. This morning, the door is open. There's another apartment on the other side. It looks exactly like mine, except it's cleaner. And someone is standing in the kitchen, staring at the wall, like they're listening for something. No explanation, no monster reveal, just familiarity turned slightly wrong.
At the end of the day, creepypastas are just a text on screen. They're web pages, they're forum posts, they're YouTube narrations for you to listen to while you go off about your day. And yet, they stick. Maybe because they don't demand belief. They just ask you to imagine. And maybe the scariest part isn't even what's in the story. The scariest part is how easy it follows you out of it. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Moone, that's Nova, and we will be seeing you real soon.